Hey guys, this is a special edition today. Just with the current situation in Australia at the moment, with Sydney in lockdown and no club footy, Melbourne's in lockdown, no club footy, Canberra's just gone into lockdown, so no club footy at the moment. There's going to be a lot of our players and a lot of us are going to be struggling mentally. So I just was trying to think of a way that we could reach out to our players and make sure that we're all doing okay. I know a lot of us don't have a lot of training or expertise in this, so I reached out to Riki Cribb, the Maori Mystic. He's a mindset and strength and conditioning coach. He's worked with elite athletes and clubs all around the world. He's also recently done some work with the ACT Brumbies here in Australia. He was really generous with his time, gave us some really good insights in how to stay connected with our players around their mindset and some mindfulness stuff. So I hope you got as much out of this as what I did. I took pages and pages of notes. But guys, just remember, stay strong, stay connected. We will get through this. Rugby will be back, but make sure us, our players, our families, and our friends all get through this. So stay connected. Use whatever tips Ricky's given out. Feel free to reach out. Like he said, there's plenty of free resources out there. Just stay safe, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll make a start. So just for the people listening, Ricky, if you just want to give me, 30 seconds on who you are, what you do, where you are at the moment, that type of stuff.
Yeah, so I'm originally from New Zealand. I've spent about 7 years teaching internationally overseas, and also, a large number of years as a mindset and strength and conditioning coach. So really zoned in on the mindset and mindfulness stuff over the last sort of 3 years as a coach consultant. So mostly with professional athletes, rugby players, but at all levels really, schoolboy, club, academy. And yeah, a lot of it is online, and a lot of that is due to, the environment and COVID and stuff. So being able to adapt to that's been pretty important.
Yeah. And did I hear correct that you had some stuff to do with the Brumbies this year or last season?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So, I was sort of cut a bit short again with COVID and getting stuck out of New Zealand, and we had a baby being born. So not as long as I would have liked to, but yeah, I was over there for a short period and then doing a bit online too. So yeah, same sort of stuff. So through the as a coach consultant, I operate through the Maori Mystic, which is mostly on Instagram, but also as a company, and one-on-one with teams and so on.
Yeah, nice. I did read that somewhere about you doing some work with the Brumbies. So what we want to talk about, mate, we just touched on it briefly before we started recording, is especially in Australia at the moment, half the country's in lockdown. There's no rugby on. I know in Sydney, I think the Shoot Shield's going to be cancelled for the first time since like World War II or something. In Melbourne yesterday, they extended our 7-day lockdown for another 7 days. Canberra's gone into lockdown today. Brisbane's in and out of lockdown at the moment. So just want to have a chat to you around some of the stuff, like the grassroots coaches and the amateur coaches. What can we do with regards to our player, like the mental well-being side of it and their welfare as we move through these difficult times?
Yeah, awesome. Hey, thanks for giving me a bit of context there, Andrew, mate. Look, it's with the model that I use, that holistic well-being is quite a cornerstone of that. So, and that's a flow model in terms of high performance. So how do you get into flow? How do you get into that ideal performance state, which allows you to be intuitive, to be spontaneous in the moment, and so on. So the model that I use is a triangle, and so the holistic well-being I see is very important to that. And where's your energy, where's your where are your thoughts and emotions, and being aware of that. And the nutrition, the physical, the spiritual side of well-being, the social and so on. So that's where the holistic view comes from, connected with nature. And so firstly, I think that, you know, obviously that's a huge, I feel, opportunity there actually with COVID to start to, you know, whether you can implement that online or have, you know, go through that with players in different ways, obviously. And then the other cornerstone is the mindfulness approach or awareness, the real being side of it. So just being present, and whether that's, you know, like with being locked down at home, whether that's going for a walk outside, or, you know, having some time to yourself, whether it's meditation, whether it's mindfulness and breathing, whatever that looks like is completely different for everyone. Could be something recreational, but so those are the two, with the triangle model I use to create flow in the middle. They're kind of the two corners, and then at the top is really the traditional mental skills, you know, and that's how I see it, that the real foundation comes from mindfulness, presence, being, and the holistic well-being, which obviously, in terms of the context and the COVID, you know, straight away in terms of the mental side of the game, you can see that a lot of the importance can be placed in stuff that you can do every day, or, you know, whether it's a morning routine or around self-inquiry or becoming self-aware. And so there's a huge, I actually see it as a great opportunity to really look into that and to have the time to explore a lot of that space. And actually a lot of players that I work with that have contacted me around the world since COVID started, a lot of them have seen that opportunity and had the time, you know, to maybe inquire into some things a little bit more deeper, or had the time to explore things that were holding them back with their mindset. So I see a huge scope. I actually see it as a, whenever there is a challenge, or we can see a collective challenge here, it's that whole thing about, which is quite common now, embracing that challenge, I feel, or embracing the anxiety, or seeing the opportunity in it, so having that growth mindset. So for sure, 100% for me, the opportunity is, you know, you are, not that it's not difficult, you know, it's very difficult, you know, maybe a lot of people are sitting with their thoughts and minds a lot longer than usual. They don't have the usual, you know, tools or the usual environments that are there to help them. So, but again, I think look at that as an opportunity to perhaps, you know, observe some of that, or to stay with the anxiety that might be there, or that uncomfortable environment that is caused for a lot of people, the stress, the financial, all sorts of things that can come up. Now, not trying to say that this is easy, but certainly looking at that perspective of the opportunity for coaches to really explore that two things that are very important for flow that can be done, you know, anywhere, any time of the day, and that's the holistic well-being side and the and that mindfulness and presence side. So I would for sure, that's kind of the overview that I'll give for coaches to actually, there's a great chance here to you know, explore some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's some good stuff in there, mate. So you spoke there about like the flow state and the holistic stuff that we can do as coaches. So, and again, a lot of the stuff we're going to be doing is like what we're doing now over Zoom, because we physically can't be with those players. And like especially a lot of club footy guys, they turn up, you know, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, they've had a crappy day at work, or they've had a fight with the missus or whatever, but they come down to rugby, and that's their outlet. You know, they get to do, and whether that's part of their holistic stuff, or, you know, whatever it is, but it's just an outlet for them. How can we help them with that outlet type stuff, bearing like with that holistic stuff, and when we're like online or over the phone and stuff like that, because we're not meeting face to face?
Yeah, for sure. Look, what I would probably do, or maybe suggest, is I mean, a lot of the times I think we can take this well-being and the holistic side to things for granted, you know, whereas I think in my experience, a lot of teenagers or kids or club players, a lot of their attention's not really on that. They don't really have much of a grasp or an understanding, or, you know, they have much awareness around it. So, you know, I feel just doing a online, going through that, you know, going through a basic, you know, what is well-being if we look at it holistically, and, you know, breaking down. So what does it mean to be the mental side of it, mental, emotional, which is hugely important, and, you know, having maybe a bit of a Q&A or give out a Google form survey to players, get some feedback, and then, you know, maybe go off that data. And, you know, in my experiences, pretty much all players, whether they're very open to it or not, consciously or subconsciously do want to explore that, and, you know, and do want to grow in that area. I just feel that in terms of society, being a lot of the time with rugby players, maybe there's a male stereotype for the males, and it can kind of, and then there's the peer thing. It really, there's a whole lot of factors into it, right? Around the culture and around the dynamics in the team. But I just feel just having it explicitly there for a session, you know, there's a lot of different models around well-being. So you can look at the mental, emotional, and ask the question, you know, get some feedback through a survey, and then look at the, you know, what does the spiritual well-being mean? Which for me is any player can, through a spiritual lens, can look at just being present in the day and whatever they're doing, or being mindful and practicing, whether it's self-awareness or mindfulness, things that are becoming more common skills now that can improve performance. And then again, the social, and then so linking back to what you're saying about the outlet of rugby being that social chance for you to switch off your mind, you get exercise, some good hormones and endorphins. You know, like you said, you're at work for the day, there's a chance to release that, get into the space of good energy. Well, how can you do that in your own day? You know, you can't be here, but you can be, whether it's by yourself or with one or two others who you live with, you can, you know, exercise and go outside and try and maybe not completely get there, but, you know, you can replicate that in some ways. And then as a team, I feel as a team, there's a lot of pretty fun stuff you can do online, you know, just as a little, you know, not maybe once a week, or whether it's a, you know, something I use as a teacher was a Kahoot quiz, or, you know, maybe connecting players in some way online, just a bit more informally, probably, depending on the context. So, you know, but yeah, so just as a summary of that, it's being explicit about, you know, what does holistic wellbeing really mean, having a survey or a bit of a Q&A around that. And I think a lot of coaches will be quite amazed at the rich feedback that can come through when you give that space and opportunity, and look at nutrition and sleep, and then, you know, the social side, the side around the mental, emotional well-being, mindset, you know, and there's obviously a whole lot of different ways that can play out, you know, whether it's around, you know, there's more pressure, there's more anxiety, whatever it is, a lot of the challenges that can come up, how are you dealing with them, and so on, and lead it in that way. And again, I'm sure Australia, New Zealand has a lot of, you know, free, in terms of, if people do have, you know, some people have serious mental health issues coming up, especially with COVID and things going on. So in New Zealand, there's phone numbers, there's avenues to free counselling, and, you know, there's always, I think in the age that we live, you can almost sort of kind of facilitate that process a lot. And I honestly feel that the best coaches at the highest level probably do that a lot, in terms of being connected and knowing the players, and knowing them on quite a deep personal level, and having that trust and safety to explore a lot of this stuff. So I don't think as a coach, you know, it's for a lot of coaches, it's a huge area of growth to go into this space a bit, which, you know, might not be comfortable to start off with. You know, it's I'm speaking from, you know, 15 years being a teacher and university study, and and working a lot with athletes and in the space. So, but I have enough empathy to know that any coach who doesn't quite isn't that comfortable exploring this with players, I feel it's a great chance to grow and learn, and it is something that is becoming more and more common in sports, and the link to high performance and performance is becoming more and more common if you pay attention to that. So it's a win-win, really, I think.
Yeah, no, that's really good, mate. There's some really good easy things that we can do as coaches just to stay like connected with our players, and I think that's the thing. A lot of coaches just don't know how to do that, or haven't had those conversations, and it can be quite daunting. So there's some really good little tips in there that we can use to stay connected and make sure our players are okay. Like you said, there's some players are doing it pretty tough at the moment. Some players that I know are doing it tough. So there's got to be a few everywhere at the moment with the ever-changing crisis or virus that's happening at the moment. So no, that's really good, mate. I really appreciate some of that stuff. So like I said, mate, it's just about getting some info out for these coaches that may not have had any experience in this side of the because it's probably all this new stuff's coming up for coaches that we've never had to deal with previously. Because like you said, they turn up Tuesday, Thursday, they blow that steam off, and then they go home. But now it's like, I can't do that. What do I do here? And then the flow on from that as well. Like they're not going to training, so they, like you said, they're not exercising, they're not doing this, they're not watching what they're eating, and then they hit that spiral and they start to make everything worse. So
yeah, I think something practical as well for that is you could again, I've done this in different ways where you could have the players just keep a journal, quite nothing too intensive, but a journal around well-being, such as how they're sleeping, and just quite easily as a Google Doc, if you shared that with your coach, keep it just a simple updates around nutrition, how they're sleeping, how they're feeling when they wake up in the day, the exercise and whatever it is they do for their well-being or mindset, any challenges, just nothing complicated, but that keeps quite a dialogue, which you can quite easily do just as a Google Doc or something, or whatever way you wanted to do that. And you might even invite some opportunities to, if a player, for whatever reason, something comes up and you see an opportunity to talk about sleep, or see an opportunity to talk about, whatever challenges they bring up, then you can open up that discussion and so on. So yeah, I know as a teacher, we've as well, we used to, do online exercise classes and yoga. I think you can do a lot. It's not ideal, but I think in terms of the, whether it's a quiz or something simple, you can kind of do a lot. And I would suggest if you have a well-being or a framework around, and break it down in terms of, mental, emotional, physical, and then look at it that way, and then maybe in one column, when rugby's on, how do the players and as a team, how can you tick all these boxes? And now that you're, not there in a physical space, how can we support players in all of these areas? And ultimately, for me as a coach as well, it's it has a huge impact on the team flow. It has huge impact on individual mindset and flow, and the kind of the culture and the team energy. So this is stuff that I feel that best coaches do anyway, to be honest. But look, I'm very aware as club coaches, it's probably not the same amount of time, or, not the same amount of resources or time with the players as, professional or school environments. So there's a lot of different dynamics there, but I think, it's certainly, I see a lot of opportunity in it, to be honest, in terms of learning new ways to communicate, to, developing skills around technology and how to, it's that whole mindset around the perspective of there's a challenge, which I see COVID as. How can you embrace that, or how can you deal with that adversity, whether it's your thoughts, emotions, or deal with that external challenge there, which really ultimately is the same thing as going into a game, right? The essence of, if you're going into a big game, there's the challenges, there's the uncertainty, anxiety, thinking comes into it. So that's what, in terms of the mental side of it, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of become more aware of that, or understand yourself and know yourself better, and then create that space of being around that. So yeah, it's
that's awesome, mate. There's some good stuff that we can that us as coaches can easily do without too much sort of you got to put the effort in, but not without too much sort of formal training. Like, we don't need to have that formal training. We can just go on a game day. How do you feel? How do blah blah blah. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense to me, mate. I might give that a try with my boys as well, and just see how we go. But no, that's really good, mate. I really appreciate some of that stuff. That's hopefully going to help a lot of coaches out there just to stay in that frame with their players, and their players, because at the end of the day, it's about the players and making sure that they're all okay,
Yeah, 100%. And I think part of my involvement with sport is, seeing the potential of sport, and there's a different, going from school to sport, there's different relationships and connections, a lot of the time, different energy. So again, as a coach, like I even feel as a coach, if there's not much experience in kind of the well-being and the holistic side of things, that the best practice anyway is to try and make it player centered as much as possible, or player led, or getting your captain to maybe present to the team, or if you can, or as much as you can, sort of get their thoughts. How do you guys, for example, just asking questions privately around, how would you try and create fun, that now that we can't be together, how can we have some fun online just to keep the connectedness? And I'll tell you what, mate, if you work with teenagers, I probably have 100 options on how to do that online, and you can get that inquiry flowing and collaboration flowing, and you don't necessarily need to be an expert, I don't feel, to allow the players to lead that. Yeah.
Especially with the teenagers, you're probably going to get some wild and outlandish things out there. You're just going to go, what? Yeah. No, that's really good, mate. And that gives them that sense that they're actually involved in what's happening as well, which is, again, good for their mental health. So, yeah. No, that's awesome, mate. That was really, really good. No, I will. Yeah, there's some I've taken pages of notes here, so hopefully everyone that listens to this gets as much out of this as what I did, and they can help their players and even just grow themselves on that mindset side of it. So, mate.
Yeah, that's probably one more thing to add, is it is really something that you probably want to be practicing yourself in whatever way that works for you, and because that's where really your understanding comes from, I think, because it's not so much, I think the uniqueness is it's not so much a conceptual or intellectual process, it's more of a more of an experiential, or kind of bringing your attention inwards a lot more to how you're feeling, or your reactions or thoughts, or what things give you energy and take energy away from you. And that's where I feel players can make a huge shift in terms of their well-being and awareness, but also how that is really a groundwork to be in a flow, or to be in the zone a lot more as a player, where you're not sort of, the stress or anxiety doesn't take you in, or you're not overthinking or doubting or worrying. Yeah, for me, the coaches really have a huge responsibility to, because if you're a coach that does that, and I do see it a lot, and I do hear a lot of that from players that I work with. A lot of coaches can project that energy. So if you're projecting that energy and telling players to, do something that they'll probably see you're not doing, then it can create a bit of conflict maybe. So, I would say for sure as a coach, you to have to practice as well, whatever it is that, the team's doing would be
Yeah. And that's a good point, because it's not even like this type of stuff. If the players see that you're not genuine anyway, they see straight through it. Like, they see straight through it anyway, whether it's a normal drill or anything like that. They'll just go, mate, you're full of shit. What, we don't trust you. Making sure we're looking after ourselves as well. Because I know there's a lot of coaches out there that are worried about this type of stuff. Like, how do I, like these players sort of rely on me to lead the way, and that they may be not sure either on what to do. So.
Yeah, exactly, and it is quite a big responsibility, to be honest. And I feel that coaches there should be support through the club or through the local organisations, or it should be the ones like there is a little bit. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure in Australia at different levels there is, but it just kind of, I'm not sure overall how that works. But 100% the coaches should, whether it's upskilling or having people facilitate things or support networks, it should be there ideally. But yeah, as we know, the ideal and the reality, there can be a bit of a difference as well. So, but I think it is changing, mate, to be honest. I think it might take a while, but slowly it'll become more of a because it's really under the lens of emotional intelligence, I think, and as a trend, whether it's rugby or coaching or business or schools, that whole inquiry, emotional intelligence, that trend will keep growing, but it might be a while, mate, before it's pretty, the norm. It might be a few decades, maybe, who knows, decade or two.
and I think the stigma around it is changing. Slowly it's changing. I know, conversations I've had with my kids, I just go, oh, there's no way I'd talk about that with my parents. But yeah, it's like you said, that generational change. So especially for like coaches that are a bit older, it's going to be difficult as well. But just, have some faith that the players are actually a lot more open to it than you think they are.
Oh, mate, I tell you, the amount of players I work with who are probably the professional players in different parts of the world that are kind of in environments that are more maybe fixed or traditional, or their openness isn't quite there. I would say the amount of players that, and my experience at the Brumbies as well, the amount of players that are really open or aware, or generationally kind of have a sort of a shift in their mindset. I think you'd be surprised, to be honest. Like a lot of players are certainly, it obviously varies, but there's some very aware players that I work with that, could kind of teach the coaches a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just
no, you're right, because you talk to players, and some of the, like, even with my kids are in their 20s, and the stuff they talk to me about, and I just go, like, not where did that come from, but I couldn't see myself at their age having that conversation. So sometimes you've just got to give the players that opportunity to actually show you something.
Yeah, 100%. I honestly think any coach that does, like the coaches that are listening, that you'll be definitely surprised at what they can come up with. And if you just give that, obviously that safety and trust kind of needs to be there, but if you give it that time and space. So a good activity I like to use is, it's Harvard professor Ron Rickard came up, he does kind of deeper thinking strategies. So it's color, symbol, image. So what you do is you can ask a question around what does well-being mean to you, to the players, and then have them represented as a color, a symbol, then an image, and it can bring out a lot of creativity, a lot of deeper thinking. You know, it allows them to express how they feel or how they think, you know, in their minds. And it's an activity I've used as a teacher with younger kids, and it can be incredible the richness that can come out through just something like that, which can guide the creativity and the deeper thinking. So it's something I definitely recommend giving a go. So and then I don't know, a Google form, I think I mentioned it earlier, but you know, you can do 10 questions and have it tallied, and you know, automatically. It's very, very simple and time effective, you know, to get a lot of information. So
yeah, no, that's fantastic, mate. Some really good insight there. So mate, that has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much. And I know you are a very busy man and your time is precious. So I appreciate the time you've spent today. Like I said, I've got pages of notes here. So hopefully the listeners have got some notes and some good ideas to help them stay connected with their players and help the players, like you said, have that flow state and look after themselves in these difficult times at the moment. So, mate, again, thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Andrew.
Thanks, Ricky.